Good morning, members. Cindy, good morning.
Morning.
Please fly the agenda.
Will do. Morning, Chairperson. Can you see it, Ms. Marvin?
Perfect, yes. Okay. I think we should start. Yes, it's 8 o'clock on the dot. You are welcome, honorable members. The Speaker, Tate Masondo, the SDP, and colleagues from Parliament. You are all welcome. Good morning. Co-chairperson, I'm not sure if she was able to log in. I know that she was not well. The agenda is there on the screen. Let us first deal with apologies. And then after that, we can then deal with the adoption of the agenda. Are there any apologies, Cindy, from your side?
Good morning, members and colleagues. Yes, Chair, we received 3 apologies from Mema Sangu, who is on sick leave currently. Mr. Singh has another urgent meeting to attend. And Meg Wahube is also traveling at the moment, so she is also not available. Mr. Brauteset has a other committee meeting starting at 9, and he may have to leave then.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any other apologies, members? None. Okay. Can we then move for the adoption of the agenda?
Sorry, Chair. It's Kaiso.
In the Kaiso?
Yes. At 9 o'clock, there's another meeting running parallel to this one, so I may be switching in between the meetings now.
Okay, I'm sure by that time we'll be done.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. Can I move for the adoption of the agenda? Can I get a mover for the adoption of the agenda?
Good morning, Honorable Co-Chair and colleagues and everybody on the platform. I move for the adoption of the agenda as presented. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Member Lisoma. Can I get the seconder? The seconder.
I second the chair.
Thank you very much. Member Khai. Cindy, I lost the agenda now. I see Member Khai on my screen.
Apologies, Chair. I thought we were moving on to the first item. Let me quickly share again. Then, is it visible on your side? Chair?
Oh, sorry, I was muted. My humble apologies.
No problem.
Members, I was saying that today's meeting is just one agenda item to deal with the 2023-2024 mid-year report. Indeed, time flies. It's unbelievable that we are actually towards the end of the 6th Parliament. But I must really commend this collective. Members, we've worked hard. For the first time in the history of this committee, we have achieved quite a number of issues. Important vacancies were filled. We are moving towards the right direction, and the implementation of the legislation that is governing this committee, it is almost there as well. We are gravitating towards making sure that we implement programs based on the guidance of the legislation. So without any waste of time, let me invite the speaker, or Ntate Masondo, or both of them, just to give us the introductory remarks on the report. And then after that, I'm sure they will then hand over to the STP to then continue with the presentation. Then after that, we'll discuss and make recommendations. Speaker, if you are on the platform, please do give us some opening remarks. And if the speaker is not there, Ntate Masondo is there, can do that. Yes. Madam Speaker, I invite you. Okay, I see the executive authorities are not there on the platform. Cindy's not also advising. I don't know why. It's fine then.
Chairperson,
Oh,
I
okay.
am here. However,
okay.
I am attending this meeting from another meeting. So I thought I would just come in and allow the STP to deliver his report, so that then when there are questions which arise, then I may be able to sneak out of this meeting and respond.
Okay.
But otherwise, Chair, I am happy that you have already alluded to the fact that we have done extremely well in that some of the goals which we had set for ourselves have been achieved. We are trying our best, Chairperson. Yes, there are challenges, some of which relate to issues of administration, but I think this is not a meeting to discuss those issues. This is a meeting purely to deal with the report. But I do want to say that, Chair, all of the matters which you have raised with us before are being attended to, and at some point we will then find the time as the EA, together with the STP, to deliver a full report to you about some of the developments in Parliament. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Ntate Masondo, I'm sure, let's not, maybe Ntate Masondo will do the closing remarks. With your permission, members and Speaker, can I then invite the STP to take us through the presentation?
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, and good morning to all the honorable members of the Joint Standing Committee, and good morning to colleagues who are present, and good morning to the Executive Authority of Parliament. Chairperson, we prepared 2 reports consistent with the provisions of the governing legislation of Parliament in respect of reporting on funds appropriated and the performance of the institution in the context of the 5-year priorities that have been outlined.
Recording in progress.
For the 6th Parliament. The second important issue, Chairperson, as members would already recall, this is the last leg of the 5-year term of Parliament, 2019-2024. And this is not only the 5-year leg rather, it is also the last installment of the 30-year journey of a democratic Parliament of South Africa. So it is important that as Parliament will be closing its 5th-year term as a 6th Parliament, it also reflects cumulatively on the mandate of this premier institution of governance in our country. What are the issues that have been outlined in the Constitution of South Africa as a blueprint for the aspirations of our people? So in the context of that, on the lawmaking, on the oversight, on the public participation, on the cooperative governance, and on the international dimension of the diplomacy of the role of Parliament, there is a report that is being worked as a build-up for what the executive authority will be outlining as a statement of accountability to Africans. So the work that we are reporting now is a testament of what has been outlined for this year, what progress has been made, and what are some of the pertinent challenges that we have experienced during the year under review. Safe to say, Chairperson, as we finish the second quarter, there's quite a lot of commendable progress that as administration of Parliament we are reporting on. And secondly, there are also teething problems that we have also encountered in terms of the relative capacities of Parliament that are consistent with what we want to do in building a shift of Parliament reporting from process to Parliament that will start anchoring the 7th Parliament to report on outcomes and impacts. So as we're implementing those areas, we're looking at development indices that would track national development outcomes of the country in line with key informants, the National Development Plan, the reports of State South Africa on macro challenges, the global economic context, and all other aspects that will frame the work of committees of Parliament, so that oversight has more significant potency in respect of scrutiny to the executive. So all those insights and lessons that we will be sharing would also look in this context. These are some of the areas that we are drawing context in terms of the environmental context of this report. For the last leg of this year, it's important to reflect that steady progress has actually been achieved in our country in terms of provision of core basic services, improved access to all these dimensions of core packages of social services, and also improvements in the quality of education, especially on development outcomes. And these are the work that our committees in Parliament are tracking in terms of their own responsibilities. But also it takes place as commendable progress against stubborn challenges of unemployment, inequality, and poverty, and also to a significant extent, notable areas of the declining quality of governance in certain areas of frontline delivery of the state, as well as the challenges of energy that consistently brings down performance of our economy going forward. So those areas are part of the structural reforms that major committees of Parliament in the economic cluster have been tracking on, have been seized on, and we will be focusing on those outcomes as we go forward. We will also be tracking these macro challenges of unemployment, inequality, and poverty, especially on some of the disappointing reports on the performance of the GDP of our country and where we are in terms of the 2030 ideals and where we are. Stats SA has recently released reports last month that speaks to the challenges of unemployment with marginal decline in the unemployment rate, which is still structurally much higher compared to what is required to sustain the much more impactful economic recovery in our country. The number of unemployed growing in our country and also poverty areas. So how do we then as Parliament ensure that the Houses of Parliament are armed with the right development insights and data points to be able to scrutinize work of the executive to give the right direction? So we'll be using these indices to look forward, towards the next 7 years of the National Development Plan. Also, the global commitments of our country in terms of the Sustainable Development Goals. These are the areas that so far, between 2015, when the SDGs were passed at the General Assembly in UN, some of them are progressing at a country level, but also some of them at a global aggregate. They are also stagnant areas where massive levels of inequality are still characterizing the the geo-landscape across the country in terms of social development. In terms of the review of our own progress for the 6 months, in that context, Honorable Chairperson, we are tracking areas where we are performing and also areas where we are lagging behind. And you would see as we report, some of the areas where we are lagging are much more informed by cumulative nature of an indicator, where you would not be able to achieve it in a quarter or be able to achieve in a 6 months period, but rather it can only be tracked for a period of 12 months to be in a position to record a full attainment. So you would see that out of the 30 indicators, 19 are on track at the end of the second quarter, and 9 of them are reflecting as lagging. We think that as we go to the third quarter, some of the measures we're putting in place will be able to draw in that red indicator to start moving to progress and also add on the areas of on-track target. So there are significant measures we're implementing from October, November, December, so that when we close that quarter, those areas are also brought back on track. In respect of the reflection of that same undertaking, on Program 1, we are currently sitting at 78% on track. On Program 2, sitting at 57% as in areas of legislation and oversight. And that speaks to a number of bills that are still in process and relative to the bills that have already gone throughout the full stage of the cycle of approval and have been assented to at the level of the President. In terms of target of those areas, we have started framing our shift towards outcomes and impacts. We have a number of targets that are in the basket of transformational targets, and we're sitting at 47% as at end of the quarter. On areas of service to members and houses, we're currently sitting at 89%. However, we're still much unhappy about areas where our performance in public participation, our performance in oversight of committees where the logistical support is still a major constraint, where committees of parliament are frustrated by the work that we do in the administration. We have a battery of measures that we have committed to in the programming committee, where we will be responding to those issues, where it's structural, where it is capacity, and where it requires major changes in terms of leadership stability in those areas. So those areas we are quite committed that we will improve. As we go forward, this is what we have presented to the committee, that we will be tracking our developments around those key areas informed by the macro strategy framework of Parliament. So in short, Chairperson, out of those 5 key focus areas, a number of them are on track, and those where the progress is quite disappointing is on areas where we need full 12-month cycle to embed the founding issues of setting up those areas. If we have to work out on issues, setting up charters, setting up committees to drive change management, setting up that, at a reflection in mid-quarter, it will show as lagging. But in reality, there's an investment being made, which towards the end of the year, it will start anchoring the work on a much more longer basis. So we are quite happy around areas of programming work, where both houses programming has been achieved, as set up programming committees meeting, agenda outcome process up until it is finally concluded. On service indicators, we currently sit at 86% aggregate progress. On the next area where we have started now tracking in detail, what do you mean by this target? What do you mean that it's still lagging behind? We have indicated, Honorable Chairperson and members, the data collection work that we have done, where we have completed setting up data intelligence in Parliament, and also setting up teams to drive those areas. But on overall, the target still remains unachieved at the end of that area. Where we are putting corrective measures is around setting up key work, which we will complete by 24 November in this third quarter, and also start setting up work streams that must implement those areas and start installing stringent measures of monitoring and evaluation. So as the quarter progresses, areas where we need to know upfront, we have got data informants. So at real-time troubleshooting can take place until it is addressed before it becomes a point of unhappiness in the institution. On the area of committee planning framework, we hope that once we finish this framework, we'll be able to socialize it with chairpersons of both houses across all the committees to make sure that work of planning by committees can be synchronized. And that work must also talk to the cluster work of Parliament, and the cluster work must talk to the outcomes that Parliament has set for the term, and those outcomes must be linked to the medium-term strategic framework to track development and delivery priorities of the executive, and that must speak to national development outcomes. So we want to have interdependencies that Parliament can track right through. So at oversight has potency, and Parliament's report is linked to how it shapes conditions of development in our country. So those areas are a painstaking investment. They take slow to set them up, but we're quite confident that they will set us on a fundamental shift in terms of the paradigm of tracking, measuring outcomes on real time, and empower committees to intervene appropriately in terms of their work. So those areas around country indicator dashboards, we are busy working with that. We have done concept development. We're at consultation stages now, even though the target reflects none achieved. On the area of committee planning framework, again, some work is being done on that area. And we look forward that by the end of 24 November, that target would have been completed in terms of the analytical research paper to give us how do we want to shift around oversight priority model. On the next slide, on areas of data modeling, which is one package for investment on insights for our strategy office. This work is also being done. At this point, it reflects that the targets are not achieved at this point. The next slide. On these areas, there's marginal achievement, even though in Q1, it reflected that the framework bill assessment was not done. In Q2, it has now been achieved, but for the year overall, the data still remains in progress until all the positive momentum of Q2 is actually completed into a clear process review for each quarter, and we be able to effect the necessary changes. On the area of tracking mechanism, which members have always raised, both for petitions, but also tracking resolutions, Honorable Browter has counseled us quite a lot on this area. We will be improving on this area to make sure that we have a better tracking system for decision of the House and how the executive accounts, but also on petitions that come before Parliament, how do we work on those areas? And so far, we are quite happy that there is progress that we're implementing around this. On the area of implementation of the state capture recommendations, strengthening oversight, there's quite commendable progress around this work, which our committees have outlined. What needs to be prioritized for this term out of the 19 recommendations, 11 have been implemented, and some others are being tracked consistently. Where we still have difficulty, honorable members, is around the resource impact, where we have quantified the work and the cost drivers for Parliament to be able to effectively discharge its work. So against the pressure of Parliament not doing anything, as sometimes widely reported, there's quite a lot of work that at any given time, Parliament will be able to showcase this is where the progress. And what we have done so far is to quantify what costs do we need. And in our budget, we have made submissions to National Treasury to allocate resources for Parliament to be able to do this work. As recent as Monday, we have met with National Treasury and also sensitized them about the work we have placed before them around implementation of state capture, around implementation of the high-level panel, around the implementation of a number of decisions of Parliament around strengthening its research capacity, strengthening its policy making capacity in the various divisions of strategy, but also resources for committees to be able to be effectively capacitated. We have quantified that work, but we are waiting for resources to be allocated to Parliament to augment the budget so that those areas can be attended. So that's the constraining part also that needs to be mitigated to discharge the full strength of Parliament's capacity around that. The partnership framework for oversight, we are working on that area, and that will also have interdependencies in terms of legislatures, but also other partners that must help us in the collaborative strategy pillar that going forward we are working on. On the area of support to constituency offices, we have committed to do a review report on how constituency offices must be done. We completed the review work and also the benchmarking on international support for constituency offices. That leg is still outstanding in terms of the key timelines, but we're also reassessing areas where we are lagging behind. And we hope, Chairperson, that these areas, as we go to Q3, there will be remedies towards Q4 on those areas. The international priorities around national agenda, we have developed a draft position paper so that all these institutions that Parliament, the multilateral bodies it sits on, we have a coherent approach in the continent in terms of Pan-African Parliament, in terms of SADC, in terms of IPU, in terms of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, and also some of the major international commitments of climate change in terms of COP, as well as the United Nations. So all of those, we need to have them to be coherently put together and Parliament to know what is its capability to execute the international diplomacy. So we think that this paper we work on will set the framework so that there's greater coherence of international work done at a committee level. So at this point, it still shows unachieved, but we think that by the time we end the Q4, the end of the year, the 7th Parliament would have a coherent international relations policy framework, so to speak. On the area of stakeholder framework, we are also working on that. We have not achieved this target, and we are working on it. We believe that by the time we get to the third quarter and the fourth quarter, this work we would have significant improvements that we will record in our next quarter. On the area of petitions framework, again, this work has been a major source of pain in Parliament, and we have done the researching part. We need to invest now on a system that will be able to make sure that both houses, the tracking, the execution, and regular reporting, we are able to detect on time how many petitions have been loaded in Parliament, how many have been responded to, how many require outside. So at any given time, we can respond timeously to members when they are confronted with this kind of questions. So far, we've finished that part and would now be working on a system around implementing that. Improving public trust and confidence is a major area that goes beyond the institution itself, but key informants of that is research work that we are doing, but also to make sure that consultation takes place right across the board. We're quite happy with the steady progress, but we're not happy with the overall achievement of that work. And we commit to the third quarter and fourth quarter that this picture must at least be grounded to start investing on the shift in the public confidence of South Africans in Parliament. The broadcasting strategy is one area where we are not doing very well, precisely because of interdependencies. Some of the issues we wanted to drive, they also have to take shape informed by the public broadcasting bill, which is currently under process. So that if we have to drive our public broadcasting strategy, it also take into account the major dependencies that are outlined in that legislation, so that there's compliance also on what we'll be doing on the bill that Parliament will be passing. So we are tracking that work, and we think that in the third quarter and fourth quarter, we are quite confident that we will finish the broadcasting strategy for the 7th Parliament to be ready for that stage. On the area of professionalizing the parliamentary service, and a battery of measures, honorable members, is being implemented in terms of implementing change management, reviewing policies of Parliament, reviewing enabling support systems of digital work of Parliament, and supporting connectivity in the institution, but also the rebuilding of Parliament as an institution in terms of the brick and mortar is also taking place in speed. And all those areas are a combination of the change management to professionalize the institution. On the area of restoration of buildings, there's quite heavy and steady progress, and we remain optimistic that we'll be able to keep on the timelines. On the area of business analytics, I think I've spoken quite significantly on different project KPIs under the transformative commitments. And in short, this is about how we make impact-driven analytics for committees of Parliament. We have started the work around data management policy, and hopefully at the end of the year, a foundation shall have been set around this. The annual parliamentary frameworks, the programs of the National Assembly, the National Council of Provinces, there's steady work around this area, and we will continue tracking around progress around this area. The performance in terms of service, quite all the indicators are positive, except the area I've already covered on public participation, where we are not doing very well in terms of the unhappiness of support to members around this area. On the human resource, there is quite a lot of progress around the professionalization work, which we are doing. And in that area, there's a number of interventions we are making around student intakes that we have done. About 172 employees are participating in the training interventions of Parliament. 20 appointments were made during the period under review. And also the work of shifting institutional culture of Parliament in terms of administration, that work has been done. And also look at areas of voluntary employee that would want to leave the institution. We have done a lot of cost benefit around those areas, and also looking at how do we reduce the kind of attrition rate at Parliament to make sure that the profile of employees also reflect the knowledge base that the institution needs to consistently work towards. On the governance work, the ability of Parliament to comply with the financial management of Parliament during the quarter under review, the reporting forums have met on time. The advisory forum of Parliament in terms of oversight of the administration, all of those committees have taken place in accordance with scheduled meeting frameworks of Parliament in terms of statutory compliance. And on the area of the compliance with submitting documents on time, we have complied quite significantly in all the areas, month by month, except in one quarter one, which we did report in the last quarter one to the committee, where instead of submitting on time, 30th April, we submitted 2 days later on the 2nd of May. So we tracked ourselves as being non-compliant on that area. However, in the second quarter, honorable members, you will see that we fell back into the compliance mode around those areas. On the area of financial performance of Parliament, I would like to ask the Chief Financial Officer, Jason, to speak in summary around progress for the quarter and some of the difficulties that we face around the budget of Parliament. Through you, Chairperson, I would ask the CFO to move quickly on this slide. Thanks.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson, honourable members. This, just to provide you with an overview of the financial performance of the midterm. We've split it into two sections, mainly one slide that would refer to the second quarter, and then we follow that up with the performance for the year. So that'll be the mid-year performance. If we have a look at the overall spending for the second quarter, you can see that we are at 102%. We're slightly over by 2%, and this is mainly due to direct charges, which, as you can see in the table, we're sitting at 112%, and that's mainly due to loss of office gratuity. Can we move to the next slide, please? All right, so on this slide, as you can see, this is the performance for the year. At the bottom, you'll see that we've actually split it out. We've split out capital for the disaster fund to provide a more realistic picture of the performance. And as you will see, we're sitting at 48% of spending for overall for the last 6 months. And if we include that 7%, which is the capital disaster fund of the R1 billion, we would be sitting at 37%. So it's slightly distorted when we do include it. So the overall picture is 48%. And again, as you can see, the highest overspending area is direct charges, and that is mainly due to loss of office gratuity. We move to the next slide, please. Here we have the information in tabular format. Again, we split it into the 6-month period, or the second quarter, and obviously for the annual, for the 6-month period. Again, we're sitting there at 102%, and on the annual spending, 37%. The direct charges that we have incurred, overspent, that would be taken out of the National Reserve Fund. If we have a look at our explanations, just go back one slide, please. Yeah, if we have a look at our explanations for the appropriation statement, we do envisage underspending 710 million on our restoration and rebuild of Parliament. That is due to obviously delays in the project, and we will be catching that up during the following year. Let's move to the next slide. Thank you. Here we got the slide regarding our economic classification, and I personally always prefer the economic classification points of view. Again, this is for the second quarter, and as you can see, it shows you the exact breakdown of where we are spending the money. So when we have a look at the overspending, you will see that we've got compensation of members slightly overspent by 12% for the period, and that again is due to loss of office gratuities. And then we've got transfers, a slight overspending of transfers of 1% there. And that was mainly due to the administration. There was an increase in administration and leadership allowances that have not been provided for by National Treasury. Let's move to the next slide, please. Okay, this is the overview for the year, for the full 6 months, again in economic classification format. And as we can see, the compensation of members is sitting at 60%. And as we said before, that was due to loss of office gratuities. And everything else within for the 6-month period seems to be within line or on track. Okay, then we have a look at the information from a tabular format. And as we said before, there are certain areas that have been put under pressure, particularly the increase in travel, which we are intending to monitor. And obviously any areas that are under pressure currently would have been looked at during our midterm budget adjustment period. Let's move to the next slide, please. Okay, so as we've run through in the previous slides, you can see that there's explanations being provided for each economic classification. Obviously, the most important one being compensation of members, which was overspent by 12%, mainly due to a loss of office gratuities. Compensation of employees is sitting at 100%, which is on par. So as you can see, we don't have an issue there. PARMED, we're sitting at 99%. Goods and services also at 99%. And this is slightly increased from our previous year's expenditure. As we've said that there is travel, an increase in uptake in travel during the current period. Can we move to the next slide, please? Again, here we've got goods and services for members' entitlement, and there's a projected overspending of 8.2 million due to the increase in the utilization of entitlement tickets that's anticipated. Our transfer payments, as mentioned before, and this was due to the increase in administration and leadership allowances, and capital expenditures sitting at 100%. That is excluding, obviously, the rebuild project. Okay, let's move to the last slide. Thank you. As you can see, this is a list of our high spending items. Our travel and subsidy sitting at roughly 235 million rand. That is a big uptake. Obviously, this is the last year of the sixth parliament, and we do envisage that will be going up. Operational expenses at 36 million. Our capital expenses, as we've seen before, was 74 million. Communication services, 16 million, and that relates to our telephone for the precincts. Then our computer services at roughly 20 million, which is for the ICT International licenses renewal. Thank you very much. I'd like to hand back to Secretary.
Thank you very much, through you, Chairperson. That's our financial statement of accountability. But in short, Chairperson, these are some of the insights we are drawing from how we are making the shift from process reporting to outcomes reporting. Teething problems, yes, we acknowledge as we start investing on the foundational strength of making that shift. So some of the areas notable report as lack of progress. We are, however, assuring the committee that those shifts would have a much more stronger foundation to be sustainable towards the fundamental shift we want to see in terms of performance of the seventh parliament and how its account to South Africans would be an assured statement informed by data settings that are credible and that are verifiable. So those areas we are working on, we have not met some of the targets, but we are also ensuring that the key initiatives we have in core business, much as they are lacking at the end of the year, we are introducing quite a number of areas to make sure that those 7 areas under that transformation initiative are completed by the end of the financial year. Also on the public participation where we are lagging, it's an area that we acknowledge requires immediate intervention, and we are implementing those measures, which we will report to the programming committee and also to the relevant House chairpersons what we are doing around that. On the area of human resource insights, critical leadership position have now been filled in the areas of finance, in the areas of strategy and security. And also, we would also look at how we absorb a significant number of graduate students in line with the resource envelope we have in terms of the SETAs to make sure that the 172 students we have taken receive maximum exposure, especially during the reconstruction of parliament stage, where we will be taking about 30 students to be able to be mentored through by the professional companies that will be running the restoration project. So we are intentional on exposing young people on capacity. So at the future pipeline of parliament, by the time it takes over its buildings, it's managing its own affairs, you have a critical mass of people who have an appreciation of what work is done in the precinct, and they also have the certified competencies to work in the built environment. On the area of governance insight, again, that work is progressing very well. The policy committee, which is an internal admin committee, is reviewing policies of parliament that have largely been stale for 30 years, others for 25 years. So we are comprehensively reviewing those, and the policy committee will be meeting very soon to be able to sign off some of the first step priority policies, more than 7, that we think will help us to embed a much more positive impact to employees of parliament on the areas that they have raised. On other areas where there is incidences of non-compliance, I think it was where we submitted on 30th, on the 2nd rather, instead of 30th April. And that area has now been remedied, and we will be able to track and be vigilant around that. On the recommendations, chairpersons, on performance, again, we are setting up areas to make sure our foundation is strong, and these areas are quite lagging. We acknowledge that ourselves, and we're taking measures to improve better planning and resource allocation, but also to focus on these area that is frustrating members, the public participation, as well as capacity building for the staff of Parliament. On the area of human resource, these are the areas where we are also tracking culture change initiatives, but also focusing on what I've outlined, the issues of mentorship of external employees. On the area of governance, these are the areas where we are investing on tools to make sure that we streamline our work and improve steadily where we are underperforming. Chairperson, that's broadly the midterm detailed assessment of where we are and areas we are not happy about and areas where we are happy, and to assure the committee lastly that in the third and fourth quarter, we aim to improve on those areas where we are currently lacking. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, STP and your collective. Indeed, we have achieved a lot. It is still work in progress, but with a few months of your being in the institution, there is quite great improvement. Members, as said, that it is work in progress. There are areas that are still lacking. There are areas where the institution has outperformed themselves and they've done extremely well. I then invite you to engage on this quarterly report. I will take hands. Cindy, please help me to identify hands. Okay, it's Tim, it's Moletsani, it's Khai, Malisoma, and the last hand that I see is Becky Khade. In that order, members, I don't have to call you. It's Tim number 1, Moletsani number 2, Khai number 3, number 4 Lisoma, and the last hand down on, and then Becky Khadebe. Then the last hand is going to be the hand of Umphile Mautwe. In that order, members, I don't have to call you, please. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 speakers in that order. Thank you very much. Number 1, Tim.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm number 1. Chairperson, thanks to the Secretary for his report, and I'm sure the Speaker was referring to the issue around salary, but we're in our opening remarks, but I'm sure we'll get to that at a later stage. Chairperson, the Secretary mentioned that he had listened to my counsel relating to petitions. But Chairperson, sometimes I think in corporate structures there's a tendency to overcomplicate things. And so I want to counsel again that this is a very simple issue. When a petition is served on the office of the House Chairperson of the
I've lost him on my side.
collated, put together, and sent to the relevant. Yes?
Tim, we've lost you for a few seconds.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Do you mind to start?
Well, look, this is just all about the petitions.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
We've discussed petitions before, and it's either weeks or months since we've had a feedback on it. And I acknowledge that the Secretary said I've counselled it, and I thank you for him listening to me. But my point is we're overcomplicating this. When a member serves a petition on the chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, which is the only structure that receives petitions and effectively deals with them, the problem at the moment is it sits around and then eventually it goes to the petitions committee. That petitions committee is like a packet of licorice, all sorts. They handle all the petitions. And they traditionally meet for 1 hour at a lunchtime, and there's no ways they give the petitions the time that they require. What should happen, and I'm suggesting a very simple system. The petition is served on the chairperson's office. On that same day, it is scanned and collated and sent to the chairperson of the relevant select committee. In other words, if it's a police petition, if it's a COGTA petition, whatever, it goes straight to that relevant select committee, who then, within a week or two, can schedule a meeting with the petitioners and the relevant department. Because you must remember something. A petition is a cry for help. It is a cry for help from the citizens of our country. They cannot wait. All it needs is an interaction with the department hosted by Parliament. And so what I'm trying to say to the Secretary is start a simple system. Simply email the petition to the Select Committee Chair on the same day or the next day after it's received, and let them call the relevant department and schedule a meeting. And so the petitioners can now set forward their case with the department there live, and they can come to a resolution as to how to fix the problem. That's all it is, and it can be resolved within 1 month. But I get scared that there's some hectic corporate tracking, and this is a very simple mechanism. And I just call for that to be sort of, Chair, there are other issues I'd like to raise, but I've got to go into another meeting now. So if I can just please put that in plant that seed with the Secretary of Parliament. Make it simple, boss. It doesn't have to be difficult. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning to everyone. Let me acknowledge the presentation. My question is on a human resource. I just want to find out any clarity about the suspended officials. How many are they, and why were they suspended? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think the first two issues that were raised by Honorable Protaset and Honorable Muletsane are issues that I wanted to raise. But maybe on the issue of petition, in the fourth quarter, Chair, we did discuss this matter. We, along the lines that Honorable Protaset is talking to, but we agree that there should be a feasibility study, and if the outcomes of that feasibility study agree with the suggestion that these petitions then should, instead of going to the committee that deals with the petitions and executive undertakings, they should go to the relevant committees. But that would have to first go to the rules committee to decide on the matter. So perhaps what we need to be doing now is to monitor the implementation of that decision as to how far the feasibility study is, if it has taken place at all. But if not, why it is not, because it's a decision that was taken that there should be a feasibility study. I think let's leave it at that and just follow up on the decision that was taken in the fourth quarter. On the issue that is raised by Honorable Muletsane, I also have that as a question, because sometimes you see these things on the media, that there's a suspension, others have been able to absolve themselves and they are returned. but others are suspended. They're waiting for their day with regard to the disciplinary hearings. Chair, if I go back to the issues, perhaps I should have also welcomed the report, especially those areas of achievement. But just on the 9 areas where STP say they're lagging behind, I'm worried, Chair, because if you read that the report says that those also there are risks that they may not be achieved by the end of the financial year. That worries me a lot. But also given that many of them, if not all, were meant for the 7th Parliament, I don't know if maybe it was a right to have them as to monitor them as quarterly indicators rather than maybe have them all as annual targets, so that we maybe at an operational level they are monitored by the maybe the EAs and the executive management, but then as a committee we monitor it as an annual target. But it's already late now because it's a half year. But maybe that should have been the case, because some of them, in fact most of them, were not even achieved in the first quarter, were also not achieved in the second quarter. They might not be achieved in the third quarter as well. And so that what worries me. But I hear the commitment that is made by the STP with regard to what is it that they will be doing. Thank you, Chair. Chair, also together with the Honourable Protest, there's another select committee that we have to attend that is dealing with priority legislation. Thank you so much. Honourable Soma.
No, thank you very much, Honourable Gai. I was not too sure whether it's me or somebody else. Thank you very much in the absence of the chair, but she is still in the platform. May I take this opportunity to greet the co-chair, Mabe, as well as the speaker and the chairperson of the NSOP and their team, as well as good selves, honorable members. A very good morning. Chair, I have been covered, safe to say, at a larger extent, safe to say, there are just about 4 comments that I would like to make. One is the appreciation and the improvement. If you compare the quarter that we are dealing with under review and the last year, 2022-23, same time quarter, the progress that has been made this time around is highly appreciated. And of course, we are not just applauding the fish for swimming, but it's because there's evidence that gives us that sense of comfort. And my colleagues also acknowledge that. 2, Chair, I'm sure that outside this report, probably in the immediate future, we will receive a progress report on the milestones thus far achieved as per the plan in terms of the parliament restoration. I am aware that the speaker have directed the parliament admin or technocrats to look at the other long-term venues while the actual building is under restoration. And I'm not asking that. I'm just asking in terms of the immediate future, if we can be given that report, and also what are the challenges, and also are we still within the budget, envisaged budget that has been approved? I know there was a commitment that at no way that it be allowed to go beyond what is budgeted for, even in terms of the milestones. One is encouraged that this process of restoration of parliament will also intake the interns. I think it will add value in terms of dealing with the unemployment rate and also on job training, as it were. 3, Chair. I'm not too sure whether I heard properly what Honorable Tim said, but if it was he was referring to the Secretary to Parliament, I just want to contribute on that point to say that probably when the Speaker at the appropriate time and space, she will brief us, but we must also be cautious that cautioned that issues of salaries, I've never heard them being discussed in such a forum other than getting a report, because you start by saying that the organogram, the job descriptions, the other related matters, so that also were complete when we are interested in issues of the HR, as it were. For me, I think probably we'll look at that, but also appreciating that some of the critical posts have been filled, others it's work under progress. Hopefully, when we meet in next engagement, we will get a very concrete, satisfying progress on that. But I will urge that probably that one, let's leave it for another day when the Speaker, she's ready, but she will respond. I'm not her spokesperson. I'm not intending to be one. On issues which the third point, Chair, is the issue of which Honorable Khai and Honorable Tim has spoken to in terms of the petitions. I'm not too sure also, Speaker, through the presenter, that how do we Parliament, is there any clear guidelines or its work under progress as reported here? Because I know in the committee that I serve of transport, we received a petition from Matatiele community, and it was referred to us, and we have dealt with it sometime last year. And then I failed to understand how does then, meanwhile, we are working in the mechanism and procedures and processes and relevant bodies to process petitions, how then other petitions get delayed not to go to relevant portfolio committees or select committee or joint committees? Because I thought that there's a back office technocrats that assist us in terms of distributing those petitions. It could be a pity that if then, unfortunately, if there will be petitions that we have been petitioned and we haven't responded to those ones. And I think there must be a stock taking on that and see how much have we been able to be responsive, because people write petitions as for a good reason, as they are not on a PR exercise mission. Fourth, Chair, is the issue that it has been raised, and I know that at an APC is being addressed. However, this committee also is one of the areas that is charged or is expected to oversight on. Hence, I'm raising the issue of the support, or yes, the support and the back office work that needs to be done before the actual public hearings. That it's quite unfortunate that people who get blamed is politicians or the chairpersons of the committee, as if there was something that we're expected to do administratively other than coordinating on a laptop basis in terms of engaging with the officials. That one specifically would like to get a report, or generally in all those public hearings that have failed, whereby Parliament will go to a venue and there's no show of a community or public because of us not having mobilized the communities. I would like to separate the issues of members no show. There is a clear mechanism to deal with that members must pay back the money if they confirm that they are going to public hearings and they don't show up. But in terms of where the Parliament with the members are ready, they come, they go to a venue and there's no show of the public because of our own shortcomings. One would like to get a breakdown in terms of which are those portfolio committees, and how much has been spent per unit that is supporting the public hearings to go on, so that also we don't create an impression as if only politicians that make a mistake. But we understand that we might be short-staffed and all that, but which means then moving forward, I will suggest at the same time that there must be a proper planning so that not same committees or 4 committees go to the same municipality, expect some support from municipality and the province, whereas municipalities have got their own core functions and money to do on a daily basis. But one will request that breakdown, in particular for Transport Portfolio Committee. There was one in Velkom that there was no show of the public because of us having not done the back office work as expected. And there was no distance to be informed that we might have a problem, or even to have a reschedule that meeting so that we ensure that communities are being mobilized. Other than that, Chair, I am encouraged with the report, and we are looking forward with the promises that the STP have promised that in the next quarter, there will be some issues that have been closed. Yeah, let me stop there for now, Chair, and thank you very much for the opportunity.
Good morning, Chair and colleagues. Chair, I'm the 6th one. I should ordinarily come after Honorable Khadebe, but I see I think it's, oh, he's back. So I don't know if he still wants to speak or not. I don't see his hand. Can I go ahead?
Go ahead, member. Go ahead.
Okay. No, thank you, Chair. Chair, mine is just on, I've got 2 questions. The first one is to the Secretary. How does that SA census report play a role in shaping the strategy, particularly the one to reach more people to participate in parliamentary processes, an outreach program of some sort? So do we use the States SA census report? Because it goes into details of how many people are on TV compared to the previous report, census report, how many people are on radio, and it goes on and on. So how do we use that information to play a role in the strategy of Parliament? And speaking about the TV of Parliament and radio, when are we starting to use SABC for Parliament TV and even for radio? What is the problem? What is stopping us from using SABC, as it is our own state-owned entity, which we should be promoting, all of us? So I know that in the previous maybe 2 meetings, there was a complaint that at some point the parliamentary channel of Parliament was off, and there was issues of contract renewals and whatnot. Perhaps that should have been an opportunity for us to migrate to SABC, but maybe the Secretary can give us more light in that regard. The last one, Chair, is I see on the payout to political parties, the report says we're sitting at 101%, which means it's an overspend. So he is the lucky party that received more money than budgeted for. Thank you, Chair. That will be all from my side.
Chairperson.
It is you on the platform that I had.
Oh, no, thank you, Wanesu. I think what you have to take for, I'm driving, that's why I'm get cut off now and again. But what is critical, Chair, is that we must really appreciate the report which is in front of us. I think that it is a departure from the past reports. they are more qualitative now than before. I think that the parliament must be supported for such reports. But what is critical here, Chair, is the issues which were raised in the last when we're dealing with the annual report. I think Honorable Lisoma is correct. We were very specific on that day that public participation process of welcome. We need a report and the cost thereof. And then we also need the issue of the oversight of the portfolio committee of sports. What happened? And then did they go anywhere in the country to do oversight? If they didn't do it, what? But we said that we need specific reports around those two. So I really appeal that we do get that. But by and large, Chair, on the other issue, on the issue of the officials which were suspended, plus the issue of the contract of the Secretary to Parliament. We said on that product score, we postponed one meeting where we're supposed to deal, the item where we're supposed to deal with the issue of Parliament file. Because that report emanates from that, I appeal that let the executive authority and the STP give us a comprehensive report, not the tidbits. Even on the issue of HR, as Honorable Soma has said, let us get a comprehensive report around that. Although we did put a tentative date of the 30th or before, but looking at the program of the NA, that date is very horrible on the side of the NA. We're starting attending, I think we'll finishing up. No, it's very horrible on that day. So what I suggest that the speaker or native authority has just come with a date to us and tell us when they are going to give us a comprehensive report around those two issues. Thank you, Chair.
Member Taiso?
Chair.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, let me also appreciate the report that has been presented before the committee. In fact, we want to applaud the Secretary for, having worked very hard to put things together, up to this successive areas that the report has highlighted. I think it's a great achievement. But I'm covered with the rest of what my colleagues have said. Sorry, Chair, I was driving now, forgot to switch off this. So I want to raise only one point. No, 2 points. First is I wonder in the processes of working, because we worked under a certain health condition created by COVID, and I just wonder whether have we managed in the process to put together some new experiences, such that moving forward we now have a solid approach when such disaster emerges. There might be new things, very new, that we needed to sustain them moving forward. I wonder, moving forward to the 7th Parliament, maybe this matter might have to be looked into, because I know COVID-19 has brought a number of experiences, including the some behavioral aspect of working condition, etc. It has to be looked at and become incorporated. Secondly, is the issue on the budget to do oversight, by various committees. I think it's very important, to look or revisit this area. How is this being done? Because with the experience where, for instance, I'm referring to the parliamentary committee. So it is not possible. It is not made possible that it ever take an oversight visit in the parliamentary oversight oversight committee like this one, the Joint Standing Committee. And then what our analysis gave us that now there's Beijing and Peking type of a situation, which then says this one can do, this one cannot do. So that's what disturbed us. And I think moving forward to the 7th Parliament, I think this has to be looked in such a way that even if it can be budget for every portfolio committee, so that accountability, you are able to see it upfront coming, so that now you can be able to determine each and every committee knows this is the budget of this committee to do oversight allocated. Although it sounds very difficult, but if then the research has not been done, it has to be done such that we know. We are not going to be told on the 11th minute that everything is exhausted. Therefore, there's no budget for yourselves then to can, exhaust for an oversight work. So it then creates this thing that I'm saying, it becomes Beijing and Peking. So I think it can help very much. Other than that, I want to really appreciate the stress that the report has mentioned, has talked about. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Member Mahlo. Member Mahlo.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Proceed.
Okay, thank you very much. Chair, I'm in a situation of traveling. I won't have many things to dwell on. I would like to just to appreciate the report and the hard work that was put on by the secretary, and that indeed we have to give him courage on what he has started. My colleagues, all my colleagues have already touched on some of the points that I thought I would come up with. And I'm also certain that some of the policies that were supposed to be reviewed, they are going to be dealt with, as they have explained that there will be a meeting on the 28th of this month, where they are going to be, the policy committee will be sitting and look into reviewing some of the policies to accommodate issues of climate change, and also to look into issues of, like my colleague has mentioned, that the COVID-19 has brought a lot of things which need to be accommodated at workplace and even in the environment of Parliament. So, Chair, I am here saying thank you very much for the hard work that is done by Parliament, and also that the Parliament must, in future, make sure that this committee is one of the committees that must also be given an opportunity to go and learn what is happening in other countries, budget in time, like my other colleagues have already mentioned that. Thank you, Chair. And I'm driving, Chair. When you see me not participating, don't think maybe I'm going to be getting into the flight in 15 minutes. Thank you.
Oh, kuyabongwa, Mama. Please switch off your microphone. It's on. Kaiso, your hand is still up. I'm sure it's from the previous comment. Okay. STP, maybe before you come in, Speaker, are you on the platform? Are there issues that you would want to touch on, or you'll come at the end, or maybe come at the end? Let me invite the STP to lead And then the speaker can then do the closing summary. STP?
Thank you very much, Chairperson. With your permission, I would also ask my colleague, Mr. Paso, to reflect on progress we are making on the questions that Honorable Khadeb has raised, the public participation in Welcome, as well as whether the Sports and Culture Committee has done any oversight work going forward. On the areas of the questions raised, indeed, Chairperson, Honorable Browder is asking us to decomplicate the matter of petitions management, to make sure that it is multi-layered. Indeed, we agree that the first elementary components must be the ease to which we can receive a petition, refer to the right committee, responses given to citizens, because it is a cry for help. And on our side, it's important to say, how do we put systems that are credible to be auditable? When we say matter resolved, what is the basis for us to say that? When communities are satisfied, what is the meaning of that satisfaction? Is it because we have said we have sent it to the Premier of Gauteng? Is that what we want to elicit as happiness? Or we want to see it that the people of Katlehong have received the water? So we need to have multiple factors we bring into a system so that it can be quality checked against what is Parliament standard, against which we will say responded to. So those issues will not be done in a simple manner. But yes, we do acknowledge that to the extent that there's referral, there's record, there's execution, we can't wait for a year to finish that. So we will apply our minds to make sure that we can simplify the first dimensions of it so that we start building confidence in the system that Parliament has credible mechanisms of dealing with petitions. So we will apply our mind around that and share that with the committee as we go forward. On the area of officials that have been suspended, Honorable Moletsane, yes, as the Honorable Speaker has indicated, at an appropriate time, the Executive Authority with myself, we will be able to reflect in detail, save to indicate that there is quite a number of areas that in previous committees, we have been asked, how far are you on this process of fire and all other related matters of an internal nature? How far are we? And on the 15th of October, we did release a report in terms of what has been some of the key findings in summary of the key issues that Parliament investigations focused on. And those were consequential actions arising there too. And there are internal protected processes where we are managing in the context of employee policies on labor relations. So at an appropriate time, then a detail will be furnished in terms of taking the committee, in terms of the outcomes of those processes. Thanks. On the issue of Honorable Khai, the feasibility study on the petitions, we need to monitor the implementation of the feasibility study on the petitions framework. There is work being done, as I said, on the petitions, on also benchmarking. We have done a paper as per the quarter, but we are also not satisfied about our pace. Hence, we reported that it is still in motion. So it's those areas that we will start benchmarking and make sure that what we bring as a process, it is a simplified yet credible process around that. So we are happy that members will keep us on a check. And once we have the framing, we will gladly bring it as an update, even in Q3. How far are we on this issue? And hopefully by the time we end the year, there will be a much more credible process that we can pilot and see how the 7th Parliament will have such a comprehensive response. The issue of tracking of key performance areas, Honorable Khai, I agree with you that targets by nature they are annually based. Hence, we have APP, its annual performance plan. But the same framework also requires us that break them down into quarterly, against which the Financial Management of Parliament will require us to report quarterly on. So in that context, yes, we are looking at how to report quarterly, but mindful that on a longitudinal nature, once you start shifting to outcomes and impact, they are going to transcend a financial year, and it would evidently appear as no progress, when in fact the foundational aspects are quite invested to make sure that you have a tracking mechanism to say 5 years, these are priorities of Parliament. When Parliament then tables a mid-term report after 2.5 years, where are we on executing these issues we set transformation? When we are building a responsive Parliament, are we beginning to track that Parliament is responsive? Responsive to who? To internal stakeholders, to external stakeholders, to society. How do we then track and say this is a responsive Parliament? This is a collaborative Parliament. To who? In between who? Vertical or horizontal? What are the aspects of a collaborative Parliament? How does it look like when it passes the test of collaboration? Those are sophisticated issues that we want to make sure that Parliament must climb to another trajectory and be able to qualitatively deliver on its commitment so that they don't stay up as aspirational statements that are unachievable. And it will take us a painstaking investment of data insights, quality assuring mechanism, and a self-criticism where we are not doing right. And we want to start gearing ourselves as administration to service Parliament in that line of trajectory. So at the first year base level, we would appear very lacking in progress, but we are investing a seed that we would like to make sure that parliaments of the future have credible mechanisms where they can take a much more robust infrastructure of oversight to the executive and make sure that the development outcomes of our country are a fundamental cardinal to measure where we should be as Parliament. So yes, we will track those and still have them quarterly, but we're mindful that these are yearly undertakings that we want to do. Honorable Suma, on the areas of improvement in the performance of Parliament, as well as the budget for Parliament restoration. Yes, on the budget, this is the appropriated amount. And members would recall that in the medium-term budget of 2022-27 October, the Minister of Finance appropriated 2 billion rand, which was later made available, I think, somewhere end of March. And for year one, we've allocated 1 billion rand. But because this is an appropriation before you actually get into the detailed design, what is the extent of restoration? What informs that? So the detailed assessment that has now been done on the basis of removal of rubber now allows the technical team to start framing what will be the concepts of restoration, as well as expanding on the areas that Parliament was deficient on. So the final budget of Parliament is going to arise out of a detailed design that Parliament shall have chosen. And we are at that stage now of concept planning. What should the structure look like? And thereafter, detailed quantity surveyors were going to look at that and be able to say, these are your wishes. This is the cost attached to those wishes. It may be 2 billion. It may be less. It may be more. But if it is more, what is the grounds for justification? So at Parliament is fully aware of what it is signing on as a commitment to the people of South Africa. So those are the areas that we will come back with in detail. At this point, yes, we are spending on the first phases of the restoration, offices of members, as well as the roofing of the structure, removal of rubber, and the detailed work which we are currently doing on. It is our aim to stick to the allocated amount with quality, no compromise. Where it is justifiable, what is the justification for it to exceed, if it will ever exceed? So those issues we will be vigilant and account appropriately to Parliament around those areas. On the area of the public participation, where members have not done, are reported not to have showed up, I think those matters, the House chairpersons will be able to take appropriate guidance and advice. Ours will be able to detail a report. Where was this committee? what actually happened. Were there officials that did not show up? So the focus is not disproportionately on members, when in fact it could be that as administration, we did not do our logistical work on time to enable members. So we will surface any data point required so that every matter is looked at objectively in any decision to be taken. Honorable Mautwe, I agree with you on the areas that you have highlighted, whether the Stats SA report serves as informants for our points. Indeed, it is a credible amount of work that has been produced, and to the extent that we can utilize the data sets for public participation, we will do so. And one of the areas of our public participation strategy is to look at different channels of delivery, and public broadcaster as SABC is one of those areas that we are constantly engaging on. And we would also identify other areas where our channels of communication must maximize where we are able to penetrate quite a lot of community engagements around those matters. So we will do so. And second, we remain unsatisfied as the administration of Parliament that we still have a low penetration rate to communal radio stations, to social media sites, where our threshold is far less than what ordinarily an institution like Parliament should be reaching it. So part of revamping our public participation is to also energize South Africans to be interested on what is happening in Parliament. So it's not only major highlight events that people are interested in, house sittings and so on, but generally on the work of Parliament. And we will be applying our mind on how to improve the public participation, including engaging on radio stations, community radio stations, as well as SABC as our public broadcaster. The payment to political parties, Honorable Mautwe, is in respect of the adjustments in a year, because every year the administrative increases to members are linked to annual determination of employees of Parliament, which is something is a current practice, and we believe that it must be decoupled going forward on the basis of a sound determination what needs to be done. Because what it does now, we can make a certain determination and it would have been appropriated by the National Revenue Fund, that is 3% for members. And by the time it is determined for the administration, it is a product of bargaining processes also. And it will always have either a 1% more or a 2% more. And that difference immediately, its relationship is that when you determine allowances for members in terms of political party funding, it is tied to that. So it creates that anomaly, which we believe that it needs to be further examined to make sure that we create a much more predictable system around that. So Honorable Khade, Mr. Klasa will respond to that. And Honorable Kaiso, the budget for committees to perform effective oversight. Yes, indeed, it's one area that we will explore and ensure that the CFO can benchmark other models. If it is feasible to have 45 committees of the National Assembly, how much is allocated for each committee, how much it is reporting against, so at predictable. We don't have what we currently have, that every quarter we must move money from here to service work of committees. How do we create a much more predictable budget management and tracking in each of the committees? So when there's intervention, it must be absolutely unavoidable, but it must not be because we're under budgeting and so on. So the CFO would be tasked with this, and this work would also be aligned to the budgeting framework, the new budget model, funding model that we are working on for Parliament. I think Honorable Mahlo has commended the report and indicated that she's covered by other honorable members. Mr. Klaso, through you, Chairperson, on the area of Welcome and Sports Committee.
Thank you, Chairperson, and good morning, honorable members. On public participation, we have identified two main challenges: planning and capacity. With regard to planning, we have put in place measures to ensure that, especially the current current public engagements that are happening. We've put measures in place to ensure that those are done successfully. But not just that, we have also put in place medium to long-term plans. On capacity, we are targeting key areas there. There's been a post there of section manager for public democracy officers. We are in the process of identifying a person who will be acting in that position. And there will also be other positions attended to, like of practitioners and coordinators. And the target there is that by the 1st of December, some of that capacity should be in place. Honorable members, the Welcome incident, we've been looking at that. I can indicate that the costs attached to that public hearing, which was cancelled in Welcome, amounted to about 98,000. And of course, there are institutional processes that are meant to ascertain whether this was fruitless and wasteful expenditure. There's a governance structure that deals with those issues. So that will be taken through the relevant institutional processes to ascertain what exactly happened and why it happened and how these costs could be recovered. Again, on the Sports and Recreation Committee, the information that I have received is that there have been some challenges in terms of when the committee applies to undertake an oversight exercise and that does not get approved. The indication is that there are ongoing engagements between the Office of the House Chairperson and that committee. But I'm able to report that in relation to the South African Institute for Drug-Free Sport Amendment Bill, that bill will be introduced today. So the committee has done the necessary follow-up, albeit late, but that bill is now ready for introduction and that will be happening today. Thank you, Chairperson.
Chairperson, I want to make a follow-up.
SGP, I thought, oh, Dr. Hadebe, you want to make a follow-up? Oh, let me do this. Let me do this. Are there any issues that members would want to make follow-ups on? Okay, it's only Member Hadebe. Member Hadebe, come in.
No, thank you, Honorable Chairperson. It's very progressive indeed. That you were able to get the figures of what happened when we lost that. Also the undertaking that there'll be recovery of that to whoever was responsible for that, because it cannot be right that the MPs are just left like this when they're not in attendance, which is wrong, which is good. But that one must cut across. If it's on the side of the administration, the people responsible must be accountable. The people responsible must be accountable. But on the issue again, on the issue of the budget of committees, as it was raised by Honorable Kaiso, Chair, we had this parliament, even when the speaker was still a chairperson of the committee, we always had a budget for each committee, that it is allocated so much for a year, so that it is able, so that this issue of transfers only happens towards the end. So if this thing was, because this issue of pulling everything together, it lends to a risk. It's a risk on its own, because what's going to happen is bad that when within the very first term or the first quarter, that the budget of oversight and then exhausted by committees which are in multiple overseas trips, and then they're there, left, right, and center. Whereas when you take a committee, Honorable Khaya is correct, Honorable Kaiso is correct. Is correct that how can it be that this committee said that its budget is going to exhaust its budget when it's a joint standing committee, but it's treated as if it's, or just a bit. It's treated as if it is an ordinary committee. The ordinary committee's got 11 members. The joint standing committee's got more than 13. So when coming to dealing with this thing, it's different. It's a different ballgame altogether. So that's why that when coming to the budgeting, even the allocation of the committees, how was it done? If there was no figure allocated for each and every committee, so that it can be an estimation. So I request that one must be looked upon, because it is going to be open for abuse. That a particular person will have excessive power. Will have excessive power in dealing with this. The judge will be subject to manipulation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, members. Yes, I am also in full support. What happens to the left must also apply to the right. Staff members who are responsible for unfruitful expenditure must be held accountable, and there must be consequences to that effect. If members are being charged for not showing up during oversight, the same punishment should apply. Those who are responsible for planning and the overall mobilization, if there's no show of people are not aware, it means they were sleeping on the job. They must follow there must be consequences to that effect. I want to invite the speaker. If the STP
Thank you very much, Chairperson.
is satisfied.
Thank you. Thank you,
Okay.
Chair. Thank you, Chair. We are actually attending the same meeting with the STP, and I was just beginning to worry because I've come out of that meeting. Chair, yes, I have noted the comments of members, and I've particularly noted and am concerned about a matter which was raised by Honorable Khatebe, which he has spoken to, which relates to allocation of finances to different committees of Parliament. This is a matter which Honorable Khatebe has raised with me, and this is a matter which I've raised with the STP and Mr. Klaso, and it is a matter which we are now attending to. Clearly, there's been an imbalancing, there hasn't been a balancing act in terms of allocation of funding to different committees. And I know that this is a matter which has affected this particular committee, the Joint Standing Committee on Financial Management. So it is a matter which I would like honorable members to put a pause to, because we are dealing with the matter. The second matter, honorable members, which has been raised, which was responded to really by Honorable Soma, is a matter which relates to a package of conditions of service of the STP. Yes, which is a matter which should, right from the beginning anyway, should have been discussed at this level in a closed meeting of the Joint Standing Committee on Financial Management of Parliament. However, the matter now is at a point where it has been referred to the Powers and Privileges Committee of Parliament. And I am therefore awaiting for the response of the Powers and Privileges Committee, because the EA has been sent there to clarify the package of the conditions of service of the Secretary to Parliament. So it has become a grievance. It's now a matter which is handled at that level. So I will await the opportunity to make a submission to that committee rather than for us to discuss it here. And I'm hoping that the chairs of committee at some point of this committee will then create an opportunity for us to come with, as members of the EA, to have a discussion on some of these matters before these matters are taken out and referred to Powers and Privileges Committee, as it has happened now, if there are errors which have been committed. But for now, as far as what we know, our understanding, there is no rule or law which we have violated as members of the EA. All the powers with regards to issues relevant to packages of or conditions of service of the STP are delegated to the members of the EA. However, we are ready to account to you, chairpersons. This is the appropriate committee where this matter should be discussed. The last matter, Chair, which I would like to respond to is a matter which has been raised related to suspensions which have occurred. Chair, I want to start by saying I'm glad that the matter has been raised, because then we can pick the brains of members and understand what the thinking is. The reality is that, honorable members, for quite some time, for over a year, we could not deliver a report to you on the fire in Parliament. We could not, because there wasn't a proper investigation of that matter. You will recall that, members, honorable members, right at the beginning after the fire, you gave us a mandate, one, to conduct an independent inquiry here in Parliament, besides the criminal element that was being investigated by the police. So a directive was given to the officials of Parliament through the Secretary to Parliament that indeed that inquiry should be conducted. It has since been done. It has taken long years. There were delays, but the point is now there is a report which talks to our own weaknesses internally, which have been identified by an independent panel outside of Parliament, and also not by the police, but by a team appointed by Parliament. So that report is ready. And of course, in the course of that, certain actions needed to be taken immediately, so that in the course of addressing some of the matters which are identified in that report, there isn't interference at all. And my understanding is that that was the basis of the suspension, for instance, of some of those who may have been mentioned in the report, for purposes of allowing the Secretary to Parliament to then put together a disciplinary committee, if it is necessary to do so, and let it do its work without any of us interfering with it. Now, however, as all of this was happening, then the STP then came across other relevant information, which led to other investigations. So here, when you listen to hear the number of people who have been suspended, it is not the 9 people suspended for the fire in Parliament. It relates to other matters, which we will brief the Joint Standing Committee on Financial Management of Parliament once we are invited to do so. But just to say that a lot of work has been done, and a lot of good work has been done. And I must say also, I must thank the honorable members for taking notes and make this observation that the report has improved from what it was before. So, honorable members, we are ready, we stand ready, Honorable Mabe and Honorable Mashangu, to come and make a presentation to you at the appropriate time, Chief Whip of the party, Honorable Khatebe. But I want to thank you, honorable members, on our toes. I'm also happy that the matter of the petitions has been raised in the manner in which it was done by Honorable Tim, and the fact that Honorable Khai then subsequently made a proposal that this is there needs to be a feasibility study on this, and that there's a need to constantly monitor what progress we are making with regards to the petitions. I thank you, honorable members, and Honorable Mabe. I'm really sorry that right at the beginning, I could not provide maybe the kind of information you would have expected me to. I had just logged in and I was assuming that the one part of the executive would be part of the meeting that side and that he would then take up the issues. But I'm hoping that at the next meeting, all the relevant issues, as has been responded to by the STP, we will be able to confirm those. Thank you very much, honorable members. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for the responses and the way forward. Members, I'm sure there are no more issues that you would want to make a follow-up on. We also don't have minutes. Unless if I'm missing something, Cindy.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, there's one set of minutes, the previous meeting's minutes, and then we've got 3 reports. However, we don't have a quorum at the moment because the SDLP members are attending another meeting.
Okay.
So we will have to defer those to the next meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. Without a quorum, we are unable to proceed with the minutes and adoption of reports. We'll try make provision maybe during the week, just an agent meeting for us to consider adoption of minutes and or maybe we can do that in our next meeting. Request that everyone, all members should be present for the purpose of the quorum.
Chairperson.
Yes, that.
Chairperson, why don't you have a lunchtime meeting as we did, let's say on Tuesday, so that we adopt that? Because if you remember very well, last year our reports lapsed at the end of the year. And then they lapsed. If you can arrange that, to have a lunchtime meeting just to look, as we did with the other reports, just to look at the minutes and the reports so that it can be tabled in the House before we leave.
Okay.
Just look with the co-chairperson whether we cannot arrange something for lunchtime, let's say on Tuesday.
Malisoma?
No, thank you. Thank you very much. I didn't want to intend to close the meeting because you have to close the meeting. But safe to say, Chair, on the point that Honorable Khater has raised, because I wanted to react on it, to say that your office, if I say your office, I mean the co-chairperson's office, can through that we get round roped to see where our availability of the lunchtime, so that we do that, but also for record purposes that we did have a quorum when we started. It's not like we're under the tree. So it's only that members, they have apologized. Other than that, I think even the issues that we're dealing with, we were legally in a standing position in terms of the quorum as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. In fact, that is a normal procedure that needs to be followed. But practice has always been that we have to be a component of NCOP and of NA as required by the rules. So that's the practice. But if when the meeting started, we had a quorum. That is how we verify as to whether the meeting corrected or not. But it's fine. Let us stick to our rules and practice. Let us suspend the adoption of the minutes and the report. We will then reschedule. Cindy will do the work, check availability of members during the week. Lunchtime, there's a proposal for Tuesday already. It will not be a long meeting. It will take less than 30 minutes. So yeah, maybe let's do that. Having said that, members, Thank you very much for availing yourselves on a Friday morning. Enjoy the rest of the weekend until we meet again. Goodbye.
Long live the
Thank you,
co-chair.
Slalo. Thank you, Slalo.
Your chair.
Thank you, members. Thank you so much.